Video captures the moments leading up to the deadly encounter. A woman in her vehicle blocking the road as a federal officer approaches the car. She starts to drive away. Shots were fired and the car then crashed on the side of the road.
No! Shit!
The Department of Homeland Security said in a statement, quote, violent rioters weaponized a vehicle. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem said separately the woman attacked ICE officers with her car.
They are already trying to spin this as an action of self-defense. Having seen the video of myself, I want to tell everybody directly, that is bullshit.
The mayor and Minneapolis residents expressing outrage, refuting DHS's claim that they acted in self-defense. The agents are conducting, quote, targeted operations in the city, but the police chief says there's no indication the victim was the target of a law enforcement investigation.
To ICE, get the out of Minneapolis. We do not want you here. Your stated reason for being in this city is to create some kind of safety, and you are doing exactly the opposite.
First reports described it as a routine federal operation. Minutes later, a woman was dead. Hundreds would gather in silence, and officials would give completely different explanations of what happened. What makes this case unusual isn't just who fired the shots. It's how fast the story split into two opposing versions, both claiming to be the truth. Publicly available videos, witness accounts, and official statements don't fully align, and understanding why they don't may change how you see this entire incident. The confirmed facts? On a Wednesday morning in South Minneapolis, federal immigration officers were operating near the intersection of East 34th Street and Portland Avenue. According to the Department of Homeland Security, officers were conducting enforcement activity in the area when an encounter occurred involving a vehicle stopped in the street. Shortly after 10 a.m. local time, a woman inside that vehicle was shot by a federal agent. She later died from her injuries. Her name was Renee Nicole Good. She was 37 years old. Multiple agencies, including the FBI and the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, have confirmed they are now investigating the shooting. These are the baseline facts, agreed upon by all sides. What happens next is where the story becomes far more complicated. The scene, according to witnesses, residents in the neighborhood say they were alerted to the presence of federal agents by whistles, a system some communities reportedly use to warn neighbors about enforcement activity. Several witnesses told local media they saw multiple agents surrounding a Honda Pilot in the street. According to those accounts, one agent attempted to open the driver's side door while others positioned themselves around the vehicle. Witnesses say the vehicle moved, first backward, then forward, and moments later, gunshots were heard. The car continued a short distance before coming to a stop after hitting another vehicle. This sequence is broadly consistent across several independent witness statements, but it directly conflicts with how the incident was described by senior federal officials, the federal government's version. Within hours, the Department of Homeland Security issued a statement characterizing the incident as an act of self-defense. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said the driver attempted to use the vehicle as a weapon against officers, describing the action as an act of domestic terrorism. According to this version, the officer involved had no choice but to fire in order to protect lives. The language was strong, the framing was decisive, and it immediately drew pushback. A competing narrative emerges. Local leaders in Minneapolis publicly rejected the federal description of events. Mayor Jacob Frey said he had personally reviewed videos of the incident circulating online and stated that the official federal account did not match what the footage showed. The Minnesota governor echoed that skepticism, urging the public to rely on verified evidence rather than official talking points. At the center of this disagreement was one critical question: what do the videos actually show? The role of video evidence footage recorded by bystanders quickly spread across social media platforms. The videos appear to show agents approaching a stationary vehicle in the street. The driver is visible inside. Officers surround the car and shout commands. As the vehicle begins to move, an agent raises a firearm. Shots are heard. The footage does not clearly show the vehicle accelerating toward officers in a way that would conclusively support claims of an intentional attack. Because of angles, distance, and audio limitations, experts caution against drawing absolute conclusions from the clips alone. Still, the existence of this video evidence has become central to why the incident remains so contested, why this location matters. This shooting did not happen in isolation. It occurred during a period of heightened federal enforcement activity in Minnesota, part of what DHS described as one of its largest operations in the state. It also happened just blocks from the site of a separate, historically significant incident that reshaped national conversations around policing and federal authority. For many residents, that context amplified fear, mistrust, and confusion, and it helps explain why, by nightfall, hundreds of people would gather for a vigil near the scene. What we know about the officer, federal officials have confirmed that the agent who fired the shots has not been publicly identified. Secretary Noem stated that the officer had previously been involved in another incident earlier in the year and was taken to a hospital following this shooting, later being released. Beyond that, few details have been shared. As with many ongoing federal investigations, information is being tightly controlled. And then, attention shifted to the woman in the car. As officials debated narratives, the public began asking a different question. Who was Renee Nicole Good? Was she, as federal officials claimed, a violent threat, or was she something else entirely? Because when details about her life started to emerge, they painted a picture that did not easily fit into a single label. Who was Renee Nicole Good? As the official debate intensified, information about Renee Nicole Good began to surface, and it complicated the picture almost immediately. Renee was 37 years old. She was a U.S. citizen, and according to city officials, she was not the target of any immigration arrest. Multiple local leaders described her as a legal observer, someone who documents and monitors law enforcement activity to ensure accountability and transparency. This detail matters, because legal observers are not participants in enforcement actions. They are meant to watch, record, and report, not interfere. That distinction would soon become central to how this case was understood by the public. Her life before that morning, Renee Nicole Good was originally from Colorado Springs. She later lived in Kansas City before moving to Minneapolis just last year. She studied creative writing at Old Dominion University in Virginia. She was a prize-winning poet, a hobby guitarist. According to friends and family, she was deeply compassionate and someone known for helping others, often quietly and without attention. She was also a mother of 3. These details did not come from political statements or official press briefings. They came from the people who knew her best. The morning of the shooting, according to family members speaking to the Associated Press, Renee had just dropped her 6-year-old son off at school earlier that day. She was driving home with her partner when they encountered the federal agents in the street. There is no publicly available evidence that she was attempting to flee from a prior confrontation, nor that she was being actively sought by authorities at that moment. What happened next unfolded in seconds, and those seconds are now being examined frame by frame. Family response? She was terrified. Renee's mother later told a local newspaper that her daughter was likely frightened when she realized federal agents were surrounding her vehicle. She was probably terrified, she said. The family has strongly rejected the characterization of Renee as a violent actor, calling the shooting a wrongful killing. Her parents described her as kind, forgiving, and deeply empathetic, someone who spent much of her life caring for others. She had a good life, her father said, but a hard life. Those words would be repeated quietly at vigils across the city, public mourning, and growing outrage. Within hours of the shooting, a vigil was organized near the scene. Hundreds of people showed up. There were no chants at first, no speeches, just candles, signs, and silence. For many, the gathering wasn't just about Renee. It was about what her death represented during a time of intensified federal enforcement. Local leaders attended, community members spoke, and frustration grew as federal officials continued to stand by their original statements. The political divide sharpens Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem continued to describe the incident as an act of self-defense, reiterating claims that the vehicle had been weaponized. The president echoed that defense, characterizing Renee as disorderly and resistant. Meanwhile, Minneapolis officials doubled down in the opposite direction. The mayor described the shooting as a reckless use of power. The city council said Renee had been caring for her neighbors, not engaging in violence. Two realities were now competing for legitimacy, and neither side appeared willing to yield. Why labels matter. Words like domestic terrorism carry enormous weight. They shape public perception long before investigations are complete. Legal experts have pointed out that such language, when used early, can influence how evidence is interpreted, even unintentionally. At the same time, federal officials argue that officers must make split-second decisions in uncertain situations. This tension between accountability and authority sits at the heart of the case, and it raises a broader question. What standards should apply when federal force is used against a civilian who is not a suspect? The investigation moves forward. Both the FBI and the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension have confirmed they are conducting parallel investigations. Officials say they are reviewing video footage, witness testimony, and forensic evidence. No conclusions have been announced, no charges have been filed, and until that process is complete, many questions remain unanswered. But the story doesn't end here because Renee's death didn't happen in a vacuum. It occurred amid sweeping changes to immigration enforcement in Minnesota, changes that had already left entire communities feeling exposed and uncertain. To understand why this incident sparked such an intense reaction, you have to look beyond the street where it happened, and into what had been unfolding in the state weeks before the shooting. The wider context in Minnesota, by the time Renee Nicole Good was killed, Minnesota was already experiencing a sharp increase in federal immigration enforcement. In the weeks leading up to the shooting, the Department of Homeland Security announced what it described as the largest DHS operation ever conducted in the state. Hundreds, then thousands, of federal agents were deployed across the Twin Cities metro area. For many residents, especially in immigrant communities, this did not feel abstract or distant. It felt immediate. Community leaders told national media that anxiety was already widespread, even before the shooting occurred. Policy changes that raised alarm. Several decisions from the Trump administration had directly affected Minnesota in recent months. A protection program for Somali residents living in the state was ended, impacting a community that represents the largest Somali population in the United States. Public comments made by the former president about Somali immigrants further intensified fear, according to local advocates, who said the rhetoric left many families unsure of their future. Shortly after, childcare payments in the state were temporarily frozen, following online allegations of fraud involving centers run by Somali immigrants, allegations that state officials later said were not supported by evidence. Taken together, these developments created a climate of uncertainty. The shooting of Renee Good did not start that tension, but it dramatically magnified it. Why this case resonated nationally? For many Americans, this incident raised uncomfortable questions, not only about immigration enforcement, but about transparency, accountability, and language used by those in power. Renee was not undocumented. She was not the subject of an arrest, and according to city officials, she was performing a civilian oversight role. Yet within hours, she was labeled a dangerous criminal by federal leadership. That contrast is why this case continues to draw attention, because it highlights how quickly a narrative can be fixed, even while investigations are still underway. What remains unknown. Despite the public statements, many critical details have not been officially resolved. Investigators have not publicly concluded whether the use of force met federal standards. The officer involved has not been identified, and no final report has been released. Video footage provides important context, but it does not answer every question, and until the investigations are complete, any definitive claims remain premature. Remembering Renee beyond the headlines. At the vigil held near her home, there were no political speeches. Instead, people read her poetry. They played soft music. They shared stories. Her parents spoke not about controversy, but about the person she was, a mother, an artist, a neighbor. She was extremely compassionate, her mother said. She took care of people all her life. In the end, that is how many in Minneapolis chose to remember her. What this story leaves us with this case is not just about a single morning in Minneapolis. It's about how power is exercised, how quickly language can shape public judgment, and how difficult it can be to separate fact from framing in moments of crisis. As investigations continue, the full truth may take time to emerge, but the questions raised by Renee Nicole Good's death are already reshaping conversations, locally and nationally. If you want to understand how federal enforcement expanded in Minnesota, what legal observers actually do, and why this case has become a flashpoint far beyond one city, the next video breaks that down in detail, step by step, using only publicly available information. Thanks for watching.